we call ourselves homo sapiens, which is the rational human, which is governed by the brain and looking after themselves and their family and their clan. But we are killing this planet. We are fighting each other, killing each other, even though everybody on the planet wants peace on earth. Everybody wants an environment that's healthy for generations to come. And we don't make it, we don't figure it out. Because everybody looking after themselves and saying, I'll care about me and you care about you, but then everybody optimizing themselves, we are not taking care of, we're not solving we're not creating the society that we want.
You're tuned in to Compassionate Las Vegas, the podcast where compassion inspires action. Together, we're building a world centered in understanding, empathy, and courageous action, starting right here in the heart of Southern Nevada. We're taking the principle of do unto others as you would have them do unto you to heart. Now, let's welcome a man committed to fostering compassion in every corner of our city, a beacon of compassion in Las Vegas, your host, Will Rucker.
Welcome to Compassionate Las Vegas, the podcast. I'm your host, Will Rucker, and I am excited that you joined for today's program. I'm in the hot seat today. Today, I'm actually just having a conversation, really privileged to be joined by one of the members of the board for the Global Charter for Compassion. And he's in town here for our retreat and said, hey, I want to talk. And I said, can I capture this on film? And he was gracious enough to do so. So if you would just introduce yourself and we'll get back to talking.
Okay. Yep. I am Ole Kjorrefjord. I'm from Norway. I live in Sweden. I have spent 6 years of my life in the US. And I made a big transition in my life 7 years ago. I had, in the fall of 2016, I left many of my jobs. I was helping entrepreneurs to build companies for the last 20 years. And I had handed over, sold, left board position. So I only had one company left, which took about, a couple of hours a week. So I had 4.5 days a week that I had nothing to do. And I had cancer in my throat, which I discovered in the summer of 2016. So that was treated during the fall successfully, but it was a real wake-up call that life is finite. I'm not 18 and have the whole life in front of me. It can end anytime. So I became much more serious about my life. And every day is precious and I should live my life to the fullest every day. And so when I was thinking about what to do with my spare time, I was considering to help to start more companies. But I felt I had a more important role to do to make the world a better place. So I worked in management consulting in a company called McKinsey. I was senior partner. I've seen lots of big companies and lots of the world and big institutions. So I know a lot about how the world functions. And I also have done a lot of startups where we started from nothing and created great companies. So these skills I've brought to work for a better world. I met a woman named Barbara Marx Hubbard in 2017, and she brought fantastic perspectives that I was very much attracted to, and also clarified my mission. I thought that my mission was to take my business background and create responsible and respectable businesses. But Barbara's vision was to create a compassionate world on all dimensions. And that was even more exciting.
And Ole, how do you define compassion? What does that mean to you?
But it really means that recognizing that we are all in this together. We are one with everything. So, I mean, if you think about quantum physics, we know that ultimately inside the atoms of our bodies there is quarks, there's vibrations, it's just energy. Mm-hmm. So it's atoms in this sofa, and that's energy. And the mountains outside, there's atoms and there's just energy. So everything is energy. We're just manifesting in different shapes.
So before we started filming, we were talking about energy drawing me to Las Vegas, mm-hmm. and me just feeling as though this is home. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious because you also mentioned that you're starting to see the wealth gap increase, mm-hmm. in Sweden. Mm-hmm. And this idea that we're in this together, I think there's a group of individuals of means that does believe that. And then there's a group of individuals with immense struggle that thinks you can't truly understand it because you don't have lack. And so I'm just curious as to how you reconcile kind of the two worlds.
You know, there have been people starving and suffering and being killed on this planet always. So there is going to be suffering. And unfortunately, especially I would say in the US in the last decades, there's been more and more separation. So it's me versus you. It's America first. It is, and the income gap is increasing. But this is just a global reality that we have had in the world forever, and it's I think that it's an opportunity now to recognize that we are in this together. It's I was at the presentation yesterday where people living in the tunnels in Las Vegas, and I couldn't believe that the community were not supporting them, because they were kind of less worth than the others. So, which was very sad. So it was, but it requires a kind of a mental shift of humanity. I am spending all of my time to support the transformation of this planet, so that those who have found ways to work together in harmony are supported, and that we can learn from them, and from this good examples that are popping up all over the planet, kind of connect them and create movements that will shift the world. People of means, many of them are not very mature, and they actually are not very happy either. I learned this when I was 21. I moved to Manhattan, and I was at a big party on Park Avenue with a boy my age, or in the 20s, had open house, and there were more than 100 people in the apartment, and they were drinking and using drugs and dancing with loud music, and he was sitting in the corner being sad and lonely, even though he was one of the richest kids in New York.
Wow.
So there's no correlation between wealth and harmony.
Or happiness.
Which is harmony. It's kind of being in balance, just being cool, feeling good.
What makes you happy?
Oh, heart connections. Yeah, I am. Something that happened in 2017, when I started to work for a better world, I also became a grandfather, and
nice.
So I have 3 grandchildren, and the greatest joy is to be together with them in their space. I call them my gurus, because we can just be in the bubble and play with whatever we're doing, and it doesn't matter what's happening anywhere else. So that's what gives me the greatest joy, actually, my grandchildren.
Yeah, my grandparents often say something similar, and it's amazing. I was doing a talk earlier today about self-compassion and to college students, and mentioning that it's really our relationships that bring us true fulfillment. And I remember being an undergrad and going after business and trying to do all of that, thinking that it was the money that would make the difference or the status. And what I have found from my experience is my favorite thing is conversations like this and connect and being of service, being present. You know, sometimes I'm a worker. I enjoy getting things done, taking action, and I'm finding more joy in simply being present now than even an accomplishment, whether it's a worthy cause or, you know, whatever, but just being able to not have an agenda, to be open to experience. I love to learn, and I love to learn about other people because I learn more about myself as I talk with other people. So I'm looking forward to the day I can say I have a grandkid.
Yeah, it is great. It's also a big responsibility because the children are molded, formed so much in their early years. We can really hurt them for life. And many of us have been hurt for life in our early years, which has caused traumas that we have needed to deal with as we get older. But to really see them for who they are and appreciate them and make them feel loved gives them such strength, I think, for the rest of their life. So I have that is my most important job, to see my grandchildren and be there for them, and then it's the rest of the world. I picked up my grandson at the kindergarten on Tuesday, and on Wednesday morning I flew here, and I'll be landing on Monday night in Stockholm, and on Tuesday I will go pick up my grandson again.
Wow.
From the kindergarten. I do that every Tuesday.
What would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned so far from your grandchild?
It is very warm love. My youngest grandson, when I pick him up at the kindergarten, as soon as he sees me coming out of the car, I say, "Granddad!" and he comes running towards me, and I lift him up, and I hold him here, and he is just almost melting into me, and our hearts are so connected. So it's that is really feeling like we are one or in unity, and we give each other so much love. So that is the greatest joy in my life, is the times when I'm lifting up my grandson and he hugs me and I hold him.
I mean, I can feel that from you as you talk about it. One of the things that I do in meditation is called resourcing. And you think of a person or a place or an experience that brings you exactly what you're talking about. And you recall that in moments of your stress or just as a start of your day to kick you off on the right foot. So that's a beautiful resource. And it doesn't even have to be real. Like, yours is a real experience. But I think anyone through the story you just told can use that as a resource for themselves. So, now, you said you wanted to get to know me a little bit, so I want to be respectful of that. And I'm actually quite honored. I'm curious as to what you want to know.
Yeah. What are you doing now? How do you spend your week?
Oh, wow. So That's a big question. It really varies. Like, so my 9 to 5, my day job, so to speak, is with one of our healthcare providers here in Las Vegas, and I'm the director of community health. So what that means is the community is my patient. I'm not a licensed medical professional or anything. Married to a nurse, my uncle's a doctor, so we have those in the family. But for me, it's community health. And what does that look like? So social determinants of health. Are people eating? Are they housed? Is education happening? That sort of thing. And so we work with volunteers in medicine, and we've done some funding for them, and we've offered programming and things of that nature.
But it sounds like you're taking a very holistic perspective of the community health.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, I mean, we have 67 clinics and a number of physicians and all of that in town. But my role really is that holistic piece. And I kind of get in trouble for saying it sometimes, but my job is really to keep people out of the clinics.
Sure.
Because we want them healthy.
Yeah.
So that's my day job. And I love it, and which is something I'm really honored and privileged to say. Like, I don't have to disconnect from work because it's something that truly brings me fulfillment and joy. And in addition to that, I get to work with Compassionate Las Vegas. And so I have a number of roles, the podcast, of course, being one. But I also get to serve as a coach for our cohort. And so Compassionate Las Vegas brings together 30 or so leaders in the community to provide really connection. We frame it as you're going to get professional development and leadership skills and all of that. And they get all of that. Like, we do the programming. I think our workshops are second to none. And the real magic that happens is people that wouldn't ordinarily get to talk to each other, talk to each other.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's tension, there's disagreement, there's all that. And then at the end of the day, they're like, wow, I connected with someone and we have a real authentic relationship now. So I get to do that. I also am a wedding officiant.
Right.
And so one of my dreams as a kid was to have a show on the Las Vegas Strip. I still plan to do that. But until that happens, right now I actually get to do weddings on the pirate ship at Treasure Island. So I have my own little show where people stop and see. It's the couple's wedding, but I'm the star, right? So that's a ton of fun. I'm in school, so I'm working on my PhD in public health. And my focus area is compassion. And I want to see how that actually improves health outcomes on a community level. What I've seen is our history is causing us to cause history to repeat itself. And what I mean by that is there's a level of distrust among medical professionals, particularly in minority communities, where they won't get the healthcare that they need because they're skeptical or because there's
Who is
difference.
skeptical?
The minority communities.
The community members, not the professionals.
Right. Well, you actually have some on both sides, which is fascinating to me, particularly around the vaccine that was released for COVID. There was a lot of confusion around how vaccines work because medical professionals are trained in medicine, not necessarily in health promotion or prevention. And so how a vaccine is developed isn't necessarily part of a medical doctor's training. So there's confusion around that too. But yeah, so I get to do the weddings. What else do I do?
Okay, that's cool.
Okay, that's enough.
So yeah, you missed a big important part of our discussion today. I have a vision, which has been maturing for 6 years. I started working with Barbara Marx Hubbard 6 years ago, closely, and she asked. She was a real visionary, very great inspiration for lots of leading people, also spiritual people. She started her mission in 1953 when she met with President Eisenhower.
Wow.
Yeah, she was born in 1939. Is that right? 1929. Yeah, she died 2019, just before she was turning 90. But her father was an immigrant from, I think, Hungary before the Second World War. And he was very successful, and he was a sponsor of the presidential campaign for Eisenhower, and the whole family were invited to the White House. And Barbara, who then was in her 20s, asked Eisenhower, we're making so many powerful inventions as humanity, you know, the nuclear bomb and radar and all kinds of technological breakthroughs and jet engine. And so she asked, what is the benefit to humanity? What is the good purpose of all of these inventions for humanity? And Eisenhower couldn't answer that. He said, I don't know. This was mostly used for military purpose, you know. And she said she was determined to find out why. And she studied evolution, she studied all religions, and developed a fantastic perspective, summarizing it as evolution ever since the beginning of times, 13.8 billion years ago, has been that we have evolved into greater units, more complex units. So it started with the energy of the quarks, which became atoms, atoms became molecules, molecules became organisms, and eventually animals, and eventually humans. But every kind of evolutionary stage reaches its peak, where it's no longer functional, and then you need to take the next step. So we call ourselves Homo sapiens, which is the rational human, which is governed by the brain, and looking after themselves and their family and their clan. But we are killing this planet. Yeah. We are fighting each other, killing each other, even though everybody on the planet wants peace on Earth. Everybody wants an environment that's healthy for generations to come. And we don't make it, we don't figure it out. Because everybody looking after themselves and saying, I'll care about me and you care about you, but then everybody optimizing themselves, we are not taking care of, we're not solving we're not creating the society that we want.
Yeah.
So therefore, she said, we are now evolving into the next generation. You know, we've gone from the Neanderthals and now we come up to the Homo sapiens. The next level is homo universalis, which is the connected human, connected to the universe, connected to each other, where we recognize that we are one humanity. We need to think about and act as one. That is starting to happen in people who are like GARD, what he's doing for the, the volunteer medicals and what he's doing in other philanthropy. He is creating a way to be together as humans, that we want to be together as humans. We need to, he's having circles of trust in the charter schools, where the kids don't see the differences as reasons to bully somebody else, but to understand each other and see each other just as different and still being good people. So there are more and more examples all over the planet of people being together in new ways that is not focused on me versus you, but in us together. And my mission is to make these local phenomena connected. So there is something called the Loving Classroom, which had its origin in Israel and now is in more African countries, a lot in South Africa and also in the UK, where they, just like in the charter schools, for 1 hour a week, they talk about how is our group functioning and what do we appreciate with the group. And
so it's like a circle of trust.
It's a circle of trust,
love.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they since they had so much racial violence and problems in South Africa, all schools are required to make statistics of productive behavior. So people are coming late to school, people are violent, people are swearing, people are kind of disrupting classes. Or they have, I think, a list of 8 or 10 different things that they're monitoring. And they have worked at scale. In South Africa, they've had 51,000 students going through this loving classroom. And these schools have had a 90% drop in unproductive behavior. And the pass rates have increased for 14 percentage points.
Wow.
So there are good things happening in Vegas, there's good things happening in Cape Town or Johannesburg, and I'm sure there's good things happening in other places. Mm-hmm. And if these people who are seeing these insights can work together to kind of create some best practice and inspire each other and have some common learnings, and then start to invite others who are intrigued about what they're doing to learn from them, we can take these new practices from local phenomena to become global movements in all dimensions of society. So, which is kind of unifying humanity. That's what they're doing. They're not bullying the other students, and they're not mistreating themselves either. They're kind of learning self-compassion, and they're learning compassion for others. So there are many transformative practices that are starting to happen in the world, and that's where we should go all the way, to say we're in this together and we'll fix it together.
Yeah, I'm really excited about what you just shared. Mm. When I began my church here in Vegas, it was one name. Mm. And through the experience I had with members, with the folks that came to volunteer, it disrupted my paradigm on what a ministry looked like. Mm-hmm. And so we changed our name to the Intersection. Mm-hmm. And we were the place where life meets, mm-hmm. because that unified humanity mm-hmm. is really what I was seeking to promote. Mm-hmm. And we were a very diverse congregation. Mm-hmm. We had very seasoned individuals, very young, every ethnicity, every gender and gender expression. And it was 2 hours a week where I felt like this is what the world could be like.
Exactly.
And I still reflect on those times with awe, mm-hmm. because I wish the world could experience that, because I think, and I don't want to discount differences, because you and I are very different, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And we're so much more alike mm-hmm. than our differences might suggest. Mm-hmm. And I think our differences are what make us interesting, mm-hmm. versus what pulls us apart. Mm-hmm. And so everything you said lights up my heart, because I do see that happening. Mm-hmm. And I look at us as, I think we're more like bees and ants than we care to admit, mm-hmm. Because we do have roles. Mm-hmm. And when I even look at something like a hierarchy, mm-hmm. I think a hierarchy is a low-level model of what it's mm-hmm. trying to express what we really are, mm-hmm. because our ears don't try to be our fingers, right, or we'd be pretty messed up. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we have to start to appreciate, mm-hmm. is everyone has a part to play.
Sure.
And that part is absolutely as valuable as every other part. Mm-hmm. I can go on and on, but I just wanted to share, I'm really, really fascinated by that.
I'll share, when I was in the circle of trust, we discovered our own method of circles of trust. We were 88 people, and we started to say, so why are you on earth? What is the purpose of your life now? So we spent an hour and a half with each person on Zoom, where the person talked about their background and what they had learned in their life, and what they're excited about, and which gifts they thought they had to offer to the world, and therefore what they want to pursue going forward as their gift to humanity or to the universe. And in my old career in the business world, many of these people would have been very strange. One was educated typesetter and was designing fonts. One came from Russia and was a specialist in old Russian languages and Shakespeare. Very strange girl in my own old view, and I wouldn't have spent much time with them. But when I spent an hour and a half with them and they explained how their life had evolved and how they saw their mission, suddenly I could see the world through their eyes. So I became a much bigger person. I could see, like another person next to me, see the world through their eyes. And what I discovered is that everybody are deep inside beautiful people. So ever since we went through this process together, whenever I meet people on the streets or in a bus or in the supermarket, or people are tired, people don't make eye contact, but I can see behind the people's eyes that there is a beautiful diamond inside this beautiful child which has been beaten and disturbed through life and become a tired, frustrated person. But there is this heart energy in every person. And so when you say that you and I are different, yes, we are. But there is the same diamond inside both of us, the same warm heart energy in both of us, in all of us, every person, even I think about Donald Trump as a very poor 5-year-old boy who is still looking for love and respect and being held by his mother, but I don't think he ever got that kind of comfort. So he's still striving for the attention and the love of people.
My heart breaks in so many ways for him. Of course, I would not want him to be a leader of anything.
No.
And with that being said, though, his humanity, I think, has been lost in kind of the show of being Donald. And what I'm about to say, I don't mean it pridefully, but to the question you asked in that circle, like, what am I here for? My initial thought was, I'm here because I'm a gift. Just my presence, that's what I'm here for. I know that at the intellectual level, I don't quite yet believe it in my day-to-day, but I think that if more people understood that simply being is enough, we'd have less people behaving like Donald Trump.
I went through, and as have many of us my age, gone through some deep insights, come through some deep insights in our lives. So I was, I think in Scandinavia, talk about kind of the midlife crisis, and you're kind of hitting the wall and run.
I've had 3 midlife crises already, so
yeah.
Just kidding.
So when I was 36 and 37, I had big epileptic attacks. Once when I was 36 and once when I was 37, and because I had children that were 4 and 6 years old, and 2 and 4, and so a lot of attention needed at home, and I had a job and a career which was taking all of my time. So I didn't get enough sleep, I didn't get exercise, I didn't get to relax. I drank tons of coffee and slept 4 hours per night, and eventually the body said, nope, stop. And then I recognized that I was conditioned to perform. I was conditioned to be somebody. So the career was so important that I could sacrifice almost everything to succeed with my career at McKinsey at that time. So I met a psychologist and a sociologist, and we just talked, and he asked me, so, but why are you doing this? And why aren't you just stepping out of it? But I can't do that. That's my whole reason for being, I thought. And why? Well, that's the way I was brought up. So then I recognized that this was just, I wasn't following my heart. I wasn't doing what I really wanted to do. I was trying to perform against what my father and his father again were expecting of their son or grandson. So I said, now I have to do what I want to do. So I quit my job and started to work with a lot with leadership development first, because I had grown as a person, so I could try to help others. But much more fun was to help young entrepreneurs who had great ideas, lots of energy, and be their mentor. So that's what I did for 20 years. But back to Donald Trump, so I think, or everybody, it is to connect with our own dysfunctional behavior and see what's behind that, and stop doing. I think life is very much about peeling off layer of conditioning and expectations that are put on us when we are children, and come back to being children. Play, be happy.
I'm looking forward to the day when we don't have to do that anymore too. I think that the world is shifting, kind of this unified human you're talking about. I think that we collectively are starting to recognize that what we're doing isn't working. Mm-hmm. It's not sustainable. Mm-hmm. And as I look at how I want to parent my future children, I think that I'm more aware than my parents were, and more aware than their parents before them. Sure. So hopefully my kids will spend less on therapy than I have to.
Yep.
But I also wonder if we're going to, with the advent of AI and robotics becoming more human and being able to do more of the functions that we've typically only been able to do, if we will evolve to the place where people can truly follow their hearts, or are we just going to end up in this dystopian world where you have the very few that are doing very, very well, and then everyone else, it's like Hunger Games, are just fighting each other. And I was at McDonald's earlier, and I had to basically search for an employee because everything, you just click the menu, and I couldn't figure out how to substitute what I wanted for my meal, so I had to find a human to do it. And I mean, that's the reality. I don't think we need 30 people working at McDonald's per shift anymore, because we have technology that can take the orders.
Sure.
Here in Las Vegas, I don't think I've seen a check-in person in 5 years, because there's an app. I just check in my hotel on my app. So a lot of this labor that we've worked so hard to create, I don't think is necessary.
Right.
But I am deeply concerned that our consciousness will not allow us to make the adaptations necessary for us to continue to, at a minimum, survive, let alone thrive in the new world. So I'm curious.
Well, that was Barbara's question to Eisenhower. So are we using this technology to create a dystopian world? Or is it a blessing for all of humanity? And
so how do you see it? Which way do you see us heading, and how can we get to the way we want to go?
Well, we are at a tipping point, and it's becoming more and more extreme on the one side, but on the other side, there's also more and more people who grow as people and connect with people and work for a better way of being together. So the two things are happening at the same time, and the scale can tip down on either side. I think that there is a risk that we will have World War III before people recognize that this is crazy. We don't want this anymore. But there's also a good chance that we will not have it.
You're in Vegas. You're in Vegas right now.
Yeah.
What are the odds? What are you betting?
Oh, I'll put all my money on that we don't have World War III. But I think about the Russia invading Ukraine and the recurring conflicts in Palestine. They are just appetizers for something that's much bigger, because the real power struggle is between the US and China. We have had shifts in global powers many, many times. And most recently it was in the 20th century when the US took over the global role from the British, who had the Commonwealth and dominated the world. But the productivity and ingenuity and hardworking Americans created greater wealth and greater innovations and became the dominant power especially after the Second World War. But for the last 20 years or so, Americans have been living beyond their means. They're printing money and giving the printed money to the world, and they're getting imports from China. But at the same time accumulating a lot of debt. So at some point, the world will not want to finance American budget deficits anymore, which means that interests go up and come into recession. That's kind of one part of it. But the other part is the Chinese and the Japanese. They're working long hours, the Koreans, and so especially the Chinese, and have GDP now at parity with the US, and they keep moving forward at much greater pace than the Americans do. And
what is the perspective on America from outside of America?
I can give you my perspective, and I think it's quite aligned with many Europeans. That so I lived here in the 70s and 80s for 6 years, and I loved America, very friendly. But at that time, you could still have bipartisan solutions. People would be rational and talk together. But it's becoming more and more corrupt. The political system is corrupt. It's benefiting politicians and it's benefiting industry.
So that's not a secret. Like, we haven't kept that in house.
No. Okay. And I mean, Donald Trump is seen by people outside the U.S. as a joke, a sad joke. And but it's America gets the president it wants. And there is so much frustration in this country with Washington. So he was going to drain the swamp in 2016, which he wasn't able to do, and he's not competent for that. But out of frustration, people are voting for Trump.
Yeah.
But it's just an expression of frustration. It's not because he is appealing to people's hearts. He is the one that is the least evil of the alternatives, they think. We'll see how it goes. No, so America has been admired by the world up until year 2000, more or less, but it's a falling star.
I've sensed that, and I've not left too many times since the year 2000. I did more international travel actually when I was a child than as an adult, but I was afraid you might say what you said. On our previous season, we had a political candidate by the name of Marianne Williamson.
Oh, you talked with her?
Oh, yeah. She was our highest rated program last season.
I can understand that.
Yeah. And she's phenomenal. And two things I admired, well, among many. One, she's a love guru.
Sure.
But she's not soft. And she's not backing down. It's not like, oh, well, I love you, so it's fine. No, it wasn't that. It's like, love is going to make some correction and provide some justice. So I really appreciated that about her. And secondly, she was just so well studied on so many issues. I could throw anything at her, and she had a well thought out, holistic response to it. And with that said, she came in with, I think it was 3,000 votes or something for our state. It was really sad. And I am baffled why we continue to choose individuals who are not at a level that can actually bring the change that we as people claim to want. I could see her polarizing us in a very positive way. I could see her as kind of a catalyst for true transformation because she would have that platform as president, but she'll not get that because not enough people support it.
Right.
So I just wonder kind of your thoughts. Is that an international trend as well, or is that an American thing?
That you have Marianne Williamson who doesn't rise, or?
Yeah, that you have someone that is, it is almost as if someone wrote them to be the answer to the prayer that we are praying, and then we reject them.
It is very much an American situation because in most democracies in the world, you have many more political parties.
Very true.
Which means that you have a gravity towards the center. Although there is polarization going on as well, but that's, I think, more driven by commercial interests and business than the politics themselves, because it's not possible to buy politicians like the way it is here, because you essentially only have two parties, and also because it is a big commercial game, the whole election. Lots of money in advertising and commercials and campaigns. It becomes the money that determines the outcome, and Marianne Williamson doesn't get nearly the same funding as Biden and Trump. So,
not to go on my soapbox too much, I wonder if we spent the amount of money we spend on our elections, on our healthcare system, how far along we would be, or on our education system, or on providing housing, or on providing loving schools. The list goes on, but it's, I ran a campaign, and what I raised for my campaign, I was like, well, if you all had been giving this much to my church, we would have the whole city. So yeah, I just share that because it's a frustration, the amount of money in our political system.
The ones who are putting up the money are getting return on the money.
Yeah.
Which means that they are winning from this game, and unfortunately, and the politicians are winning from this game, but they're not serving their constituents. They're not serving the people who are there to serve. They're serving themselves. You mentioned the healthcare system. So, roughly speaking, so we have half the healthcare costs of the US per capita, but we have better healthcare per capita because there is so much commercial interest from healthcare providers, from insurance companies, from pharmaceutical companies, from lawyers that are not delivering medical solutions. They're just parasites in the system that have been allowed by legislation. Gard was telling me that now over lunch that his wife, who has been a midwife for decades, she needs approval before she can treat a patient or help with a birth.
Yeah.
So, who is qualified to challenge her, the most experienced midwife in the country?
I hear that from Florence. I hear that from my uncle.
Yeah.
My husband is a nurse, and he talks about some things that, like a wheelchair, like this person has no legs, and the insurance company will deny them the wheelchair. They're not. They don't need it. How does an insurance company tell someone they don't need a wheelchair? That's a real story.
Yeah. Who has created the legislation to give them that power?
Yeah.
Which adds negative value.
Okay, I've got one more question because I think I've kept you long enough. You've talked about a lot of things that are really interesting for me, and the Scandinavian countries, I think, get a lot of things right. I don't know if you know this, but I am Black, and I wonder how I would do as a Black person in your nation.
You would feel much safer than you would here. I think in terms of career, it would be, so assuming that you were speaking fluent Swedish, it would be harder for you to get a job than for a white person. So there is much less racial conflicts and prejudices on that dimension. But I think in the work life, it's still for some, as it is for women. I mean, it's still some prejudices. So I think, but that's kind of just broad generalizations. I think you would have a much easier life than you have here. So everybody, as I said, everybody gets a good pension. Everybody has basic needs looked after, and you don't need to worry about medical insurance or being unemployed. It's free healthcare for everybody. Or there's a limit of up to $200 per year in medical costs. So once you've paid that yourself, then the rest is on the government.
It doesn't sound bad.
No.
So my last question for you. If you had a magic wand and could make only one change, what change would you make in the world?
Magic wands. I could really do.
You could do whatever.
Miracles.
Miracles.
I would help all people on the planet to peel off all their protective layers and trust other people and love themselves. Take away all of the dysfunctions that we have been conditioned and brought up to put on to defend ourselves and to function in society and kind of be our true self, like children.
I think we can leave it there. This has been Compassionate Las Vegas, the podcast. I'm your host, Will Rucker, and as I always remind you, you are not just a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop, and what you do matters. So live compassionately. I'll see you next time.